video?
Oh, okay.
Do you want any?
No. But yeah, I just wanted to thank you all for being interested in this subject. As you may probably know, this came out from a resolution that was taken in 2008 in Barcelona at the meeting, the last Congress in Barcelona. The Geological Society of Spain was interested in promoting these subjects within IUCN, and we managed to introduce this motion that was approved as a resolution to organize events related with geoheritage and geodiversity at the next Congress. So now we're here in the next Congress in Korea, and the problem is that with all the financial crisis, we have had to reduce a lot the team working. I was expecting to be here with 5 or 6 colleagues helping me with that different. We are also organizing a round table next week, knowledge cafe. We are presenting a poster. There's going to be a documentary on Wednesday. So there's a film, and I can explain you all these other events in case you are also interested later. But the idea is that we want to slowly and gradually introduce these subjects within IUCN, and that all members at least are aware of the subject, of the latest achievements and improvements and concepts that are being used. Okay, so it is a very new subject because as what happened, similarly to what happened with biodiversity. In the 60s or 70s, very few people were talking about biodiversity. It was mostly developed in the 80s, no, in the last century. And then now it's this very common word, and everybody talks about biodiversity, and the IUCN looks like it is only focused on biodiversity. And for us, in working with Geoheritage, we were seeing that there was the need to also make known all the things that are being developed since the end of the 90s. So most of this subject about geodiversity and geoheritage has been developed during the 90s and the last 2 decades almost. So it's very fresh, very recent, and there's lots of new concepts, there's new models coming out, there's new experiences that are applying these models and methodologies, and I will talk about all of this course. I hope you are interested. I will, obviously, the examples that I know are from Europe. I have worked mostly, of course, in Spain and also in Latin America. I have many contacts especially in Chile, Bolivia, and Peru, working with them for the development of geoparks. And we will also see how it is going in the geoconservation in Europe and in Latin America. Many examples I will show from Spain. But also, if you have examples, if you have ideas or questions at any moment, don't worry, just raise your hand, and because we are a very small group, so we will have opportunity to share our experiences and ask any questions. So we can start with the first set. So we will begin. We will begin explaining some of these basics. Well, first, let me introduce myself. That's what I should have done first. My name is Enrique. In Spain, we use 2 last names: the first of the father and the first of the mother. So Diaz is the last name of my father. Martinez is the last name of my mother. So Enrique Diaz Martinez. You can call me Enrique. I am senior scientist at the Geological Survey of Spain. I'm also president of the Commission on Geological Heritage of the Geological Society and vice president of the European Association for the Conservation of Geological Heritage. This European Association has been working for almost those 2 decades and has been a key organization in the development of geoconservation as what has been done. There's also a lot of work done in many other countries, of course, outside Europe, and I'm sure if you have experiences maybe in Taiwan or Mexico, or I know that at least, for example, in Australia, there's big groups there working on geoheritage also. talking about these basic concepts that are important for you to understand what I will be talking afterwards. All these presentations you can take with you and you can use as you want. I mean, obviously citing the precedents where they can, but the basic concepts are mostly used. And some of these ideas are published, others are not, but if it is going to be good to spread out the news and the concepts, I prefer that you distribute as much as you can. And so we will give you all these presentations, and you are welcome to use them. And also there will be a folder with a lot of PDFs, a lot of documentation published during the last decades. That also you can get it. We will give you a copy. If you have a pen drive, at the end we can make copies for everybody. It's the whole thing, the presentations and the PDFs, maybe 100 megabytes. So it shouldn't be a problem. If you had a pen drive, and if not, if you don't have it now, then these days we can go to a computer in the center and we can share the files. Okay. So this is what we will be talking about. I will first explain in a brief introduction so you can understand why things are like they are now. Then explain these 5 basic or 6 terms that I will be using a lot, that for some people they are very new. They are very, not some people even, they don't sound well in their mind because it's words that they have not heard. But I remember when we started using the term geodiversity in Spain, Geodiversidad, many people were saying this does not exist, this is impossible, this is very rare. And now, after using it for several years, even when the television says the word, and when you hear it in the radio, when it shows in the newspapers, then people start to accept it. So it's happening in all the countries. And it has already happened and it will happen. So the same that happened with biodiversity. So in this introduction, first I want to make clear that some of the terms, because there's some discussion sometimes, what do you refer with geology? What do you refer with when I'm going to talk in general of elements and processes? So when I say elements, geological elements, I mean in general any element, it's an object, whether it is movable or non-movable. Movable means that you take it out from the land, from the outward. For example, these fossils that are there, or these rocks, are movable objects. But a mountain, a volcano, is non-movable. But it's also an element. A volcano is an element, a bone is an element also, a fossil, a mineral. But also included in the elements are intangible objects, like concepts and ideas and so on. So because when we talk about heritage, I will mention elements and value. And some heritage is, for example, immaterial or intangible heritage. Traditions or costumes. This is concepts that we have in mind that are also part of heritage, and they are also, I'm also referring to them as elements. Okay? And then with a process, we will be talking about geological processes. So a process is a set of actions and interactions that lead to a result. So we have biological processes, that a lot of actions and interactions between different elements that lead to a result. We have geological processes, many actions that and interactions between elements that lead to a result. Okay? And then when I talk about geology, there's also some discussions if, for example, separating paleontology from geology or separating geomorphology from geology. Some schools and different schools in different regions of the globe. When we speak about geological elements or geological heritage, I want to make clear that I am including everything. Both the landforms, which is geomorphology, the petrology, paleontology, stratigraphy, all of them included as a result of the evolution of the Earth, as a result of geological evolution of the Earth. Okay? So when I say geological elements, I am referring to all of them. Just, I don't know if everybody agrees with that or not. You have to agree. And now, also, I want to explain why geodiversity and geoheritage is kind of in the background and of societies in general. No? And there's a professor of the University of Madrid who died in the 80s, several decades ago, who studied human ecology, and he was studying the origins of many of the concepts that we have in our mind. Why, for example, we tend to have special care for children, for example. As a result of evolution, the societies that don't care for children are finished. So part of human evolution is a result of many changes that have taken during this evolution of humanity, and now we are depending according to this evolution. No? So when I ask what is nature, many people think of this. Many people think of flowers, plants, animals. That's the common thing when we speak about nature that everybody has in the mind. And the thing is that we are genetically predisposed to see animated features, to see life. So for example, when I show this picture, many people say, some people, the first thing they see is a face, not a tree. A mouth and two eyes. So when there is things around, we tend to see faces, we tend to see animated things, and that's also part of the natural selection, because the babies, for example, tend to look for the faces. If you, or things that are moving, if you have a baby, if you have children, if you have young children, the babies look things that move, if you move the hand, or look for the faces immediately. And we still have that tendency when we are older. No? And in a plant that doesn't have faces, a plant that doesn't have ability to move, but we still see animated features. And this is another example. When I ask people, when I show this picture and I say, what do you see here? 95% will say a cat. Okay? many people will say, this is a cat. I say, no, okay, no, wait, what other things are you seeing there? This is not a cat, obviously, this is not a real cat.
It's a fox.
Okay. But then, what other things do you see there? And many people say, trees. Lots of trees, okay, but there's something else there, there's something else behind. So the rocks are usually the last thing that we will see, the inanimated, or what's called the abiotic nature, it's by genetics, more or less, is like the last thing that we will see. So this has been explained scientifically, and we have to overcome that to understand that the rocks are also part of nature. The trees are part of nature, and the animals are part of nature, even if this is not an animal here. But the abiotic nature is also part of nature, evidently. So we have this normal tendency to not see the inanimated features. But the rocks, which are, as I mentioned, in the geological elements or the abiotic nature, are also part of nature. So when we see this wall is made by humans, so it would be something cultural. But each rock of those rocks that you see there, or the cement, is made with geological materials. These are geological elements, these are elements from nature. In this case, it is not an important element to be preserved, but it is useful for us for doing things. No? Same as we eat chicken, or we eat salads. So we use nature for our purposes, but the rocks are elements of nature also. And they are an important part of our environment. They are good resources. They give us many things for our life. They have been used for centuries and millennium. This is a salt deposit that is being developed since the Celtic Iberian in Spain for over like 3,000 or 4,000 years. The salt has been, there was springs with salt water, and it was worked there. Or the iron, for example, has been used for millennia by different cultures. The rocks that are being used for the buildings, the slates for the roofs, and so on. It is a real resource that has helped humanity. And also, an important thing is that geological elements, whether it is a volcano or a geode, a huge geode made of crystals. You know what is a geode? A hole in the rocks that is filled with the crystals from the sides. In this case, the hole was very big and the crystals are very big. This is an example in southeastern Spain. But some of these elements are very interesting for us, and we would like our next generations to enjoy them also. No? So that's why some of them we preserve them. We want to preserve them. For example, meteorites. Meteorites give us information about the origin of the solar system and of the universe. And there's very few meteorites. So those things similar to protected species, those elements, whether it is a species or a habitat or an ecosystem that are very rare, we try to preserve them and conserve it. So it happens the same with the geological elements. If they are very rare, we will see what characteristics later. We want to preserve them for the future generations. Okay? So now we can begin with some of these concepts, and the first thing, after that brief introduction that puts us in general terms, I would like to also explain these 5 new geos, as I was calling them, the new terms that are emerging during these last 2 decades. Okay. One of them is geodiversity, and I will explain. There's going to be another presentation focused on this, but it is the variety, frequency, and distribution of natural abiotic elements. When I say natural, it's important because it's not human-made. Because there has been a proposal by some geographers to call geodiversity the variety of everything on the surface of the Earth, including buildings, roads, and electric posts. But this is not the case for us and for the people that we are working in nature conservation. We refer to geodiversity. This is as only the abiotic elements, and it is the equivalent, the abiotic equivalent of biodiversity. So biodiversity studies the diversity of life, of biotic elements, and geodiversity studies the diversity of abiotic and of geological elements. Geoconservation, so as you might think, it's the conservation of things that interest us, which are the geoheritage and the geodiversity. We will explain why these things are interesting. So all these strategies, programs, and actions that we use to preserve for future generations these elements and the geodiversity is called geoconservation. So it would be the equivalent of bioconservation, which is the conservation of species, habitats, and ecosystems. Okay? Geoheritage is out of the geological elements, the selection of these elements and processes that we want to preserve, that are the objective of geoconservation. So not all elements are geoheritage or geological elements, only those that we select for our purposes of conservation. Okay? Geotourism is the tourism oriented to these geological elements, to the natural abiotic elements. It will be the equivalent of ecotourism in the life, in the biotic systems. And then there's another term from the last 2 or 3 decades also, that is the geopark, which is a management system of the land, that is oriented towards geoconservation, of course with more background, more other concepts involved, but this is the basic thing. If there's no geoheritage, then there's no point of making a geopark. So the main objective is geoconservation, but then we use that, the geopark, for the socioeconomic development of the area and so on. So it would be an equivalent of the biosphere reserve. There's geoparks of the UNESCO also, which is has a specific rules, criteria to follow, and for the declaration of the geopark. Okay, is it clear so far?
We'll discuss more about geopark.
Yes, yes. Then about geoconservation, as I was mentioning, one thing that I have, probably all of you find it very clearly, but some people don't have clearly the separation between protection and conservation. Protection is it's a way of preserving things for the future, which is the objective of conservation. So we protect towards conservation. So conservation includes all the management actions, planning, use, and then protection is only part of the things that we can do. Normally it's through legal measures. And then geodiversity, as I mentioned, we will go afterwards with more concepts about geodiversity, is the variety, which is the number of classes, different classes, the frequency, which is the number of times that each class is present, and how they are distributed, the spatial disposition of the geological elements in an area. And as I was mentioning before, with geological elements, I will refer to everything that is abiotic, the rocks, the sedimentary structures, minerals, fossils, the landforms, also natural resources of geological origin, the groundwater, fossil energy. So all these are geological elements, and also the natural processes that lead them.